Factsverse presents. A World War II widow found her husband's Normandy resting place 60 years after he vanished. Before we get into our video, help us spread the word about Factsverse by clicking that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. Peggy Seale was born in the 1920s in Vernon, Texas. When she turned 18, she wanted to do something to help during the war, and she got a job at the Altus, Oklahoma Air Force Base. There, she worked as an electrical instrument mechanic and was the only female mechanic on base. She met the assistant supervisor in the propeller department, and he told her about his son Billy. He wanted the two to meet because he believed that they'd really hit it off. Billy was based at Brooks Airfield, where he was training as an Army Air Corp flying cadet. Peggy was shy, so she wasn't sure about reaching out to a stranger. Since Billy lived so far away from Peggy, he wrote her a letter. Peggy responded, and the two started sending each other letters regularly. It wasn't long before their friendly letters turned romantic, and the two courted for months before Billy asked Peggy to marry her. She said yes, and the two were married September 22, 1943. The couple didn't have any money, so they didn't have the money to buy wedding rings. Peggy gave Billy her Vernon High School class ring instead. After their wedding, Peggy and Billy planned to take a honeymoon during his 2-week leave. Unfortunately, a ship carrying American pilots was destroyed in a torpedo attack, so Billy was called to war. He was now a fully trained second lieutenant, and he was needed. The couple had been married for only 6 weeks when the couple was forced to separate. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, Billy was needed more than ever. When Billy's group was called to war, the men and their wives were taken to a hotel in Tallahassee. When it was time for the men to leave, the wives were told to go home. They were also told not to tell anyone that their husbands had been sent overseas until they arrived there safely. As difficult as it was, Peggy said goodbye. Billy made it to Europe safely, but Peggy was devastated when she received a telegram claiming that her husband was now missing in action. At this time, she was living in Colorado. She could no longer handle working on the airbase. She was working there one day when Billy was overseas, and she took out the instrument panel of a plane that someone was killed in. When she saw the dried blood on the panel, Peggy decided she just couldn't do it anymore. This was when she decided to move to Colorado. After she received the first telegram about her husband, she received different information from the U.S. Supreme Headquarters in Allied France. The military release claimed that Billy Harris was just on leave and had returned to the United States. Peggy and Billy's father hadn't heard from him, but it gave Peggy hope. Sadly, it was false hope. When Peggy tried to get answers, she was told that Billy was likely being processed. Peggy and Billy's family assumed that he was in a United States hospital, possibly without his memory. Peggy heard stories like that before, and she was willing to believe anything if it meant Billy was alive somewhere. In March 1945, Peggy was desperate to find her husband. She began making inquiries into the International Red Cross. Unfortunately, they were not willing to open a full investigation. When new details emerged, the information often contradicted things that she'd already heard. One report said that Billy was missing in action. One said he'd been killed. Then she'd get another missing in action report again. Peggy refused to give up on her husband. Even as late as 2005, Peggy was getting information that Billy was missing in action. This is what she was told when she reached out to her congressman, Representative Mac Thornberry. Unfortunately, Representative Thornberry didn't conduct a basic search of the National Archives and later apologized for mishandling the case. When Billy's cousin Alton Harvey requested files from the Department of the Army, a red flag was raised. 6 months earlier, a French woman requested the same records. Everyone wondered why she did this. Billy's file stated that he was posted to Southeast England, where he was assigned to the 355th Fighter Squadron. He flew daily missions, and they led him to being awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross and 2 air medals with 11 oak leaf clusters. After completing hundreds of missions, he earned his ticket home in July of 1944. He wrote to Peggy giving her the good news. The ship he was assigned to was full to capacity to treat the wounded. Since Billy couldn't go home yet, he continued flying missions. Sadly, he was shot down over the woods in northern France. He died in the crash, and the townspeople had been honoring his memory ever since. Les Ventes, where he crashed, was the hometown of this French woman who requested his files in 2004. She was looking for information on Billie to hold the 60th anniversary of the liberation of the town. He was even buried there, but the people believed that he was Canadian, not from the U.S. Finally, Peggy knew what happened to her husband. Peggy found out that Billie crashed his damaged plane away from the town to keep from injuring people. He could have ejected from the plane, but he didn't, so he could save lives of others. The people of Las Ventas never forgot his sacrifice. This World War II widow found her husband's Normandy resting place 60 years after he vanished, and Peggy was now finally able to say goodbye to her one true love. Subscribe for more.